Hey everybody, how's it going? Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com, and this is my list of the top 10 most iconic moments in WrestleMania history. These are moments where you can just take a snapshot and it captures the whole moment and you know the whole story behind it. There have been a lot of memorable moments at WrestleMania over the years, but to me, these are the 10 that stand out the most and were the most historically significant. So let's start off here with the first one, number 10, going back to the very first WrestleMania. The entrance of Hulk Hogan and Mr. T along with Jimmy Snuka in their corner. And there have been many times where we've seen wrestlers walking through those hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden and going through the curtain. But to me, this is the one that stands out the most because it was the main event of the very first WrestleMania. You had Hulk Hogan, who was one of the most popular characters in the world with Hulkamania, Mr. T, one of the biggest television stars in the world, and on the other end you had Roddy Piper, the top heel in the business. So this was a main event of epic proportions, and WWE had a lot on the line here, and you could just feel the intensity as Hogan and Mr. T were walking through that hallway and going out through the curtain. It was just one of those magical moments where you knew something big was going down. Next up at number 9, Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth reuniting at WrestleMania 7. This was following the end of the Randy Savage career-ending match with Ultimate Warrior, and Sensational Sherri, Randy Savage's manager, had enough and she attacked him. She was mad that he lost the match, and Miss Elizabeth came out from the crowd. She attacked Sensational Sherri, and then you had this awkward moment here with Randy Savage and Elizabeth, not sure what was going to happen, but then Savage comes to his senses, and the two of them hug, and it was one of the most emotional moments in WrestleMania history, and I definitely got a little teary-eyed watching it the first time, and even now, you know, it was a magical moment, and Randy Savage and Elizabeth went way back for several years, and Savage went heel, and to see the two of them reunite, I mean, it was something really special to see at WrestleMania. And I know some of you guys out there are very prideful, but I'm sure many of you got teary-eyed watching that as well. Coming in at number 8, Edge spearing Jeff Hardy at WrestleMania 17. There have been a lot of cool spots or moments in a match over the years, but to me, this is the one that stands out the most. It was the TLC match, and Edge, in front of 70,000 people, does this spear to Jeff Hardy in midair. It was crazy, and that really summed up the entire series between the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys. That moment right there, I mean, it was just insane. And, because it happened at arguably the biggest WrestleMania of all time, it is, I think, without question, the single most memorable spot in a match at WrestleMania. Next up, the end of an era embrace at WrestleMania 28. I was not a huge fan of the actual Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Triple H, but to me, the most memorable thing about that match was the end, and that entire WrestleMania for that matter. The most memorable thing was, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker up on the stage, and they have that embrace, and they salute the fans. I just thought that was a really special moment. And, going back 4 years, you had the two Shawn Michaels matches with Undertaker, and then you had the two Triple H Undertaker matches, and this was the end of it. This was the end of an era. And, these guys were there, not as characters, but as human beings, just saying thank you to the fans and saying thank you to each other for being able to, produce these memorable moments over the years. And, it's just really cool to see them have that moment. Next up, from WrestleMania 23, Vince McMahon getting his head shaved by Donald Trump. This was the Battle of the Billionaires, and this was perhaps the biggest WrestleMania of all time when you consider the fact that it did break the record for the most pay-per-view buys in WrestleMania history. And a lot of that was due to this match. People wanted to see what was going to happen here. Vince versus Donald Trump, loser gets his head shaved. And how fitting was it for Vince to get his head shaved at the event that he created? And this was a match that drew in not just your regular wrestling audience, but also people that casually watch wrestling and people that don't even follow wrestling. They were curious about this match, and they wanted to know what was going to happen. And you also had Stone Cold there as the icing on the cake. His own nemesis, Vince McMahon, getting his head shaved, and Stone Cold was there to make sure that it went down. Next, we have Mike Tyson knocking out Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14. This was significant because it was the beginning of the Austin era. Stone Cold Steve Austin winning his first WWE Championship, and you had Mike Tyson in the storyline affiliated with DX, but then he made the pinfall, he counted out Shawn Michaels and raised the hand of Steve Austin. And Shawn Michaels was not happy about this. He got in Mike Tyson's face, and then in that Sports Center moment, you have Mike Tyson throwing that quick right hand and knocking out Shawn Michaels, and this would be the end of Shawn Michaels' wrestling career for 4 years. So it was the end of one era and the beginning of a new era. Coming in at number 4, the Hulk Hogan and Rock stare down at WrestleMania 18. They did not even need to lock up for this to be a special moment. Just the fact that you had these two larger-than-life personalities in the ring staring each other down and looking back and forth at each other and then looking at the crowd, just the eye contact and the emotion that was there in their eyes. This told the story, and the crowd reaction for Hulk Hogan in Toronto at WrestleMania. Hulk Hogan making his WWE comeback, and they didn't even have to say a word. They didn't have to move a muscle. They just stood there, looked at the crowd, looked at each other, and it was magic. All right, now we're down to the top 3 most iconic moments in WrestleMania history. Number 3 is Shawn Michaels reaching his goal, realizing his boyhood dream of becoming WWE Champion at WrestleMania 12. You had several memorable moments here. Shawn Michaels making his grand entrance from the rafters, coming all the way down to the ring, and then finally defeating Bret Hart in the Iron Man match, and the emotion. I mean, this was just raw emotion here. Shawn Michaels not even playing a character. This is as real as it gets. Being the WWE Champion, being the top guy, all the years of hard work finally paying off, and WWE is recognizing you as the man, and you just see Shawn Michaels overcome with emotion. He's just clutching the title, and it was one of the most real moments, not just in WrestleMania history, but in the entire history of the wrestling business. I mean, you couldn't help but be so happy for Shawn Michaels that he finally reached the ultimate goal by becoming WWE Champion. And now we're down to the number 2 moment. Steve Austin in the match with Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. He is in the sharpshooter. It is an I Quit match. Bret Hart has it in the center of the ring. There is no place to go. And Steve Austin is trying to reach the ropes, but he can't do it. He's trying to power out, but he is busted open. He's got this blood pouring down his face, and he's just screaming in pain. And this was really the beginning of Stone Cold's reign at the top. And this was Steve Austin making a babyface turn, a guy who, despite the fact that he's got all this blood loss, he is bleeding like a mofo, and he will not give up. He will not quit. And Steve Austin became a hero to the wrestling fans, a guy that would never give up. And Bret Hart made his heel turn, and I've talked about this before on my other videos. This is my all-time favorite WWE match, and that moment with Steve Austin with the blood pouring down his face, you never forget it, and it's one of those clips that WWE always shows, and rightfully so. And finally, the number 1 most iconic moment in WrestleMania history, Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. And this was really the first WrestleMania moment where you felt that WrestleMania was the show and it was larger than life. And, you had WrestleMania 1, but by this point, this was taking it to a whole new level because it was at the Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 people, Hulk Hogan picking up the 500-pound Andre the Giant, or 700 pounds as Hogan likes to call it. But regardless of the weight of Andre, just the fact that he was able to pull it off with Andre's health problems, I mean, it was spectacular to watch. And, it was one of the most iconic moments, not just in WWE, but in all of wrestling, and perhaps the most iconic moment ever in professional wrestling. And, the moment where you really felt that Hulk Hogan was indeed immortal and would live forever. And not just Hogan, but Andre as well. That match, regardless of the quality of the match, it was still, that was the key moment right there, that body slam. And that's the moment that made that main event something special. So, that's my number one moment, and those are my top 10. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, youtube.com/NoDQCAW, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest news in WWE and TNA. Thanks for watching.